All right, so welcome. If you weren't in school yesterday or didn't join our Zoom yesterday, I'm Mr. Flint, and this is Oceanography. And typically on any day, you could join the Zoom. I had the time wrong earlier. At 10:10 is the right time for fourth period on a regular day, and every class is Zoomed, every class is recorded, whether we're in school or not. Um, Today is like a snow day, so we're all here on Zoom and my plans had to like change just a little bit and whatnot, but we're gonna do a couple things. So let me help you out just a little bit with the organization of the course, and so we can see like uh, ways to help navigate and some things that I kind of try to be consistent about in the way that the course is organized on Schoology. So anyway, whenever you click on like the courses, your courses, our course, the icon is a picture of the front of a coral reef, and it has a scuba diver. So that should be easy to find. You probably don't have other courses that have like coral reefs and scuba divers and whatnot. And then the entire course in materials is organized by the chapter in the textbook. So the textbook is our guide for the course, and we do things, beyond what's in the textbook, of course. But the organization of the textbook follows a logical sequence of the understanding of what we're going to do in oceanography. So anyway, uh, all the other chapters will be listed, but after the basic resources, this is chapter one, our current unit. So wherever it says current, that's what we're, currently working on. And then I always have the plan for the week for each week. So this is the first week, so there's only one plan for the week. But as we go down through the unit, you'll find additional plans for different weeks. So anyway, in the plan for the week, what we talked about yesterday, just kind of welcomed you, found yourself on the seating chart. This is the Zoom recording from yesterday's class. So on every day's class, right beside the date for the class, it'll say Zoom recording. It'll take you to a YouTube channel. That's my YouTube channel where the classes are um, like housed. Some of the classes won't be like publicly available. In other words, they won't be available for everyone to see. But you can always get to the recording for each class by clicking this link. So what I mean by that is if you just started my YouTube channel and like search by date or something, you might not find the class for that date because it could be hidden. There's different reasons why I make some videos public and make some videos like hidden, but in the plan for the week, right beside the date will always be the recording. So if you missed class yesterday and you want to see what I talked about, you can click on that. Anyway, I'm not issuing the textbooks right away, but if you were in class, I give you a copy of the Chapter 1 study guide. And if you weren't in class, or if you're a remote student, you can get that here on Schoology. There's a link. I try to provide links to each of the things, but the Chapter 1 study guide is actually something I want to talk about today because I've also included, let's see, some other people are coming in. Got to mark them down. I've also included a copy of Chapter 1 that's actually from the previous edition of the textbook, but it's nearly the same. The publisher provided Chapter 1 to me as a preview whenever we were selecting the textbook. So that's available for you to view through Schoology, and that can be a guide for you today. Anyway, and if you weren't here yesterday, or if you're a remote student and you didn't watch the video, a good idea is to watch this video that says, "How big is the ocean?" and this other one about Polynesian wayfarers finding their way around the world's ocean. And tomorrow, I'll show you a little bit more about that. But anyway, so today's a snow day, and we're zooming it in. And if you're already here, I've already got you marked down for attendance. But some things to do today. I put a link here to the post for why did you decide to study oceanography. That's also on the right-hand side of the course. So if when you're in the course, then on the right-hand side, oh, I guess it's not up there. Huh, not sure why it's there. Anyway, there's in the folder for chapter one, there's a link here, your interest in oceanography. You can click that and then add to the discussion. There's already been some posts about like why you decided to study oceanography or what your interest is in fish or in the ocean or aquariums or something related to oceanography. So I invite you to post to why did you decide to study oceanography. Anyway, um, in the chapter one folder, I also put an electronic copy of chapter one from your textbook. I mentioned that it's the previous edition, and it's pretty close. They just kind of changed the color scheme a little bit and changed some of the focus articles. But in the chapter one folder, there is this PDF here that says Oceanography text for chapter one, but that I've also linked directly in with today. So this overview of the textbook, chapter one, as an introduction to oceanography. I'm just going to open that in another tab here. The textbook text will open within a window in Schoology, but alternatively, you could download it. I think it's kind of big because it's, let me see how many pages. I think like 30 some pages or something, 35 pages. You could download it and view it offline, and I have it to view it offline as well, but you can view it inline, and it looks really good. Um, the page numbers are slightly different from what's in the actual physical textbook that we have in the classroom, but this one's pretty darn close. So it says Introduction to Planet Earth. And in a way, the reason why Earth is in quotation marks is although the name of our planet is Earth, when you think of Earth, you think of like soil, or you think of the ground, you think of dirt, when in fact most of the Earth is actually not covered in, not covered in land, but it's covered in water. And a huge portion of the earth, right around 71% of the earth is covered in water. So if there are 10 parts of the surface of the earth, 7 of them are covered in water. Only 3 parts out of 10, or only about 30% of the earth, is actually covered in land. So the vast majority of the planet is covered in water. Anyway, the text of the textbook is very like picture rich, lots of diagrams, lots of illustrations, graphs and charts that try to help you get a good understanding as to the nature of the ocean itself, um, instead of just being like only just words. But of course, there's text that goes along with the pictures with a good description of what the visual images show. So again, I mentioned this yesterday. It's an incredible textbook. I have it downloaded so I can show you some things um, offline here. Anyway, so in the plan for the week, I've got the textbook linked in today, and also the chapter one study guide. So chapter one deals with a few different issues. It looks at the idea of the basics of the earth and the basics of the ocean, a little bit of geography. In other words, where are the different continents and where are the different oceans located? Has some things about early exploration and modern exploration of the oceans. Some things about the way in which the ocean works, the history of the Earth, biological influences. But really, chapter one is to give you an overview of what we study in oceanography as an interdisciplinary science. So the focus for this week and next week is to make sure that you understand the things that are in the chapter one study guide. So here's the deal. The textbook has a lot of information. There is no way that I would expect you to know everything that's in that textbook. There's an awful lot of stuff. And even within every chapter, there's an awful lot of stuff too. So I've focused the course on the things that are important that every person should know about the ocean, and a little bit about all the interdisciplinary things. So the study guide itself is a guide to help you understand what's important in each of the chapters. And we're going to go over everything that's in the study guide too. So if you picked up a copy yesterday, a couple things I'll tell you about right now, you can actually like put it right in the study guide. So if you have a physical copy of it because you were in class and you got one, you want to write stuff on that. If you are a remote student or you weren't in class yesterday and you happen to have a printer, you could print it out. But if you don't have a printer, it's totally okay. What you want to do is organize your thoughts and have a place where this information is collected so you can access it at any time. The very beginning of the book just talks about like the very introduction to chapter one is like, what does the earth itself look like? And I already mentioned this thing about 70% of the earth is covered in ocean, 71%. And if you look down on the Earth from space, what are you most likely to see? Are you more likely to see land? Are you more likely to see water? But then within the study guide, I have it organized by section of the book. So section 1.1, how are Earth's oceans unique? The let me share a different screen here. So there's the introduction to the textbook itself, and then section 1.1, how are the Earth's oceans unique? And you can read about this stuff. And what's amazing about the ocean? Uh, what about life on other planets? Is that even possible? Oops, hold on, my document went to the wrong page. But then a very important thing to be able to do, which we're going to refer to all the time because we're going to study the entire ocean. Really, the Earth has one big giant ocean. Let me mark this down. Um, with interconnected basins. So that video yesterday that was like a real quick introduction to oceanography and some facts about oceanography. The entire planet, we can represent it on a globe, but this is like a folded out flat map. There are big chunks of land on Earth called continents. So there's the American continent, which is North America and South America. It's really connected as one entire continuous continent, except there's this Darien Gap down there. A little bit of trivia: you can't drive continuously from North America to South America because there's a little kind of swampy area called the Darien Gap, and there's no road. So to get from North America, from Central America to South America, you actually have to take a ferry, put your car on a ship, and get it across the ocean because you can't actually get in a car in Williamsport and drive to somewhere in South America staying continuously on land. That's a kind of a neat trivial thing. But we consider the American continent to be one continent. And then there's Africa, which is a large continent. Europe and Asia is really one big continent, usually sometimes called Eurasia. And then Australia is a separate continent. And then, of course, there's lots of islands and whatnot. But the world's ocean is really one body of water. But because that big body of water is kind of broken up by the big continents, we give names to ocean basins. So it isn't that the Pacific Ocean is separate and unconnected from the Atlantic or the Arctic or the Southern Ocean, but the general area that exists between Asia, Australia, North America, and South America, that's the Pacific Ocean. And then between North America, South America, Europe, and Africa, that's the Atlantic Ocean. And then between Africa and Australia and Asia, this is the Indian Ocean. And partly it's called the Indian Ocean because this is India. And India itself is a subcontinent. We're going to study why that's called a subcontinent, but this is the country of India and the Indian Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is the ocean that's around the North Pole, and the North Pole is open water. There's ice up there, but the North Pole of the Earth is an ocean. The South Pole, there's a continent, Antarctica. So the Antarctic continent is land. So there's land at the South Pole, but there's only ocean at the North Pole. So what you need to be familiar with are the names of the continents, the names of the oceans, and be able to pick them out very quickly. So if I refer to the Atlantic Ocean, in your mind, you instantly know I'm talking about the ocean that's off the east coast of the United States. So if you go to the shore in New Jersey, North Carolina, you go down to Florida, that's the Atlantic Ocean. If you go to the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington, that's the Pacific Ocean. So our country itself has oceans on either side, the Pacific to the west, the Atlantic to the north, and then of course, Alaska has the Arctic Ocean to the north and Pacific to the south. Um, so that's a very important idea that you understand the locations of things on the Earth. To help you do that in the study guide, let me see. I provided some ways for you to organize those ideas. So let me show you where that is. In the section about what makes the Earth's oceans unique, the Earth is very unique in the sense that we have lots of water on the surface of the planet. As compared to other planets in the solar system, some other planets have water. but it might be frozen, it might be in the atmosphere, or not much water at all. The Earth has an enormous amount of water, and we'll look to see why the Earth can have so much water as compared to other planets. I'll get to this in just a moment, but on the third page, your author describes a single world ocean because they're all interconnected, but the four major ocean areas, the Arctic, Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific, that map that I showed you lets you, write down where the oceans are located between the continents, but then also it matters to know how much of the world's ocean as a percent each of the major ocean basins is and what the typical depth is. So in the textbook, let me find it here. I'll go back. So in the book, on page, like this is on page 5, shows you the location of the different oceans. And then on page 6, there are some other charts that can help you understand percentages of land and water and sizes of the different oceans. So this shows a pie chart of all the surface of the Earth. 70% of the Earth, 70.8%, or about 71% is ocean, 29.2% is land. And then when you break the oceans up, about half of the world's ocean surface is the Pacific Ocean. About 26% is the Atlantic, 20% is the Indian Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean is quite small, about 3.4%. And then for depth, there's a chart here showing average depth. So if this is sea level here, the Pacific Ocean on average is about 3,940 meters deep. That's about 12,000 feet, which is like 2.5 miles deep. The Atlantic Ocean is about the same depth, same with the Indian Ocean, but the Arctic Ocean is very shallow. So in comparing the depths of the oceans, the major ocean basins, the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian, are about the same depth. The Arctic Ocean's pretty shallow. But then there's the place that's the deepest in each of the oceans. The Pacific Ocean has the greatest position that's the greatest depth. So there's a place in the Pacific Ocean called the Mariana Trench, which is 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet deep. That's deeper than the height of Mount Everest is tall above Earth. So Mount Everest is about 30,000 feet. The Challenger Deep and the Mariana Trench, 36,000 feet deep. So that's like 7 miles, about 7 miles straight down. It's unbelievably deep. So these charts here can help you organize those ideas. Another way to visualize how much water there is on Earth, this is a really good illustration. So if you were to take the entire planet and take all the water off of its surface and then put all that water into like a sphere, this illustration shows you how big the all the water from the oceans would be. So all the water from the surface of the Earth, if you were to scoop it all up, dry the surface off, and make one big ball of water, that's how much water covers the surface of the Earth. Most of the water on the Earth is salt water. So all of the oceans are all salt water. It's very salty. It's surprising to most people how salty it is. So if you've ever been to the shore, you've been to the beach, been to an ocean, if you ever get the taste of salt water in your mouth, it's pretty shocking how salty it is. We have the same salinity or the same amount of salt in our saltwater aquariums at school. So most of the world's ocean is this big ball of salt water. The amount of water that's fresh water is much smaller. Fresh water is contained in uh, ice, snow, lakes, and rivers. And because most of this ball here is much bigger than lakes and rivers themselves, it shows you that a lot of the fresh water is actually underground or it's in ice and snow. And just that little tiny blue dot, that's how much water is in the lakes and rivers on the Earth. And from this picture, it turns out that the Great Lakes, which are in the United States, bordering the United States and Canada, um, an awful lot of uh, the world's fresh water is actually contained in the Great Lakes. And the closest Great Lake to us is Lake Erie. If you were to go up to like Erie, Pennsylvania, northeast corner of the state, then that's where Lake Erie is. But Lake Ontario, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, then Lake St. Clair, the Niagara Falls, the St. Lawrence River, that contains an awful lot of the fresh water for the earth. Okay, so let me just go back to the study guide real quick. Um, so the different ideas are what's unique about water on the Earth as compared to other planets? What percent of surface water is in the ocean as salt water? Um, in your textbook, and we'll talk about this in class too, there's a section about um, how much of the atmosphere's oxygen comes from the ocean and not from land. Because many people are like, oh, it's got to be plants that make oxygen, but actually, most of the oxygen is made in the oceans. So, anyway, this page of the study guide can help you organize what percent of the total ocean area is Arctic, Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific, what's the average depth, and what continents are they located between. Besides the four major ocean basins, this fifth major ocean area, which is actually parts of the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian, is the Southern Ocean or the Antarctic Ocean. So there's a separate section in the text on the bottom of page. Let's see what page it's on. Find the top. So page 5, there's a description about the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic Ocean. And then down toward the bottom, there's an ocean basin that's called the Southern Ocean, or people also call it the Antarctic Ocean. But really, it's this area that's around Antarctica, and it's actually the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, the southern part of the Atlantic Ocean, and the southern part of the Indian Ocean. The waters around Antarctica that surround the bottom of the Earth, the water is very cold. The storm activities incredibly um, incredibly active. It's difficult to navigate for a lot of reasons. Um, there's not much travel that takes place in the Southern Ocean. Anyway, the Southern Ocean is sometimes not even included in the list of oceans, but really represents an area that's south of about 50 degrees south latitude. It's the southern part of the Pacific, southern part of the Atlantic, southern part of the Indian Oceans. There's another way to visualize the oceans, and that's see on a flat map, things aren't so great because you've got to take a sphere and fold it out to be flat. So if you just go to like Google Maps and zoom out, or Google Earth, you can take the Earth and you can rotate and turn it. So to give you a sense as to the size of the Arctic and the Southern Ocean, let me go out here. Whenever you look at the Earth from the equator, so this is like an equatorial view. This here is the equator that runs around the center of the Earth. You have the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is between North America, Europe, South America, and Africa. So you have the Atlantic Ocean. If I keep on going, the land that exists between Africa, Asia, and Australia is the Indian Ocean. And as you keep on turning it, and this dotted line here is the equator that runs around the center of the Earth. The Pacific Ocean, now you can see just how massive it is. You've got the Asia up here, Australia, and then I got to keep on turning to be able to see South America and North America. But from this map, you can also grab the Earth and rotate to look at the Arctic Ocean. And now you can see when you look down on the top of the Earth from the North Pole, the Arctic Ocean is really not that big. And it's relatively shallow. The North Pole's right about here. So if I grab the Earth and spin it, it'll rotate about the North Pole. But on maps, things look a little bit distorted. So when you go to the South Pole, as I rotate further down, now you can see Antarctica. So Antarctica is a continent, and the South Pole is right about here. And now you can see Antarctica is surrounded, on this map it says, by the Southern Ocean. But really, the Southern Ocean actually represents the bottom of the Indian Ocean, the southern part of the Atlantic Ocean, and the southern part of the Pacific Ocean. So the area of the Southern Ocean, instead of it being like surrounded by continents, is like an area around one continent. So besides looking at flat maps, if you go to Google Earth and zoom out, you can get a good sense by rotating the planet uh, where the different bodies of water are. Okay, now besides, let's see, share screen. Besides the major ocean basins, there's another misconception that people have related to the names of oceans. And another name for an ocean is a sea. So people talk about, like, I'm going to look at the sea, or somebody goes by sea as a seafarer. And you've heard of what's called the seven seas. And if you ask most people to start naming the seven seas, they'll start maybe by saying, well, there's the Atlantic Ocean, there's the Pacific Ocean, there's the Arctic Ocean. But in fact, that's not what the seven seas even refers to. So this maybe might be new to you or might clear something up. A lot of the history of oceanography and a lot of the history that you learn and teach, and much of our literature in the United States is based upon traditions from Europe, the Middle East, Asia, India, and Africa, and especially from the European tradition. There's let me zoom in here. Much of like the basis of civilization grew up, in areas around the Middle East, or Egypt is here, North Africa, all throughout Europe, and then Western Asia and India, and of course, ancient civilizations in China. There's great trade routes, which I'll tell you more about, that run through here. So it turns out that much of history, in our written history, is based upon works and writing and understanding about people who travel a lot in this region of the world. And of course, there's people who've lived all over the planet, but the reference to the seven seas is a reference not to the outer oceans, but to smaller bodies of water, which some are saltwater and some are freshwater, that lie inland. So in Europe, south of Europe, between Europe and Africa, there's the Mediterranean Sea. And the Mediterranean Sea is really like an extension of the Atlantic Ocean, but that's one of the seven seas. The body of water that's between Italy and Eastern Europe is the Adriatic Sea. And then north of Turkey, between Turkey and Eastern Europe, is the Black Sea. And then further to the east is the Caspian Sea. And then separating the Africa from the Arabian Peninsula is the Red Sea. And then separating the Arabian Peninsula from from southwestern Asia is the Persian Gulf. And the seventh sea is actually the Indian Ocean, which we consider to be an ocean body. So the seven seas don't include the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, it does include the Indian, the Southern Ocean or the Arctic Ocean, but the seven seas refer to the ancient seven seas, or bodies of water that are mainly in the Europe, Africa, um, Asia regions. And some of them are connected to each other, some are fresh, some are salt, and we'll get to that. But in the study guide, I wrote about, or I want you to write about and reflect about what, let me get to it, what the seven seas are. So, besides the four major oceans, there's that Southern Ocean, and then there are the seven seas. And you can read about how our seas defined. Okay, so section 1 really gives you the most major general overview about the locations on the earth and the different parts of the ocean. So the best thing to do is to read through section 1 and then into section 2 of the book, and fill out the study guide as best as you can right now. I've got some other images and pictures I'm going to show you, and some videos we're going to talk about in class. But section 1-2 is about ocean exploration. And when we're back in class tomorrow, I'll tell you some stuff about ocean exploration. So let's see. Yeah, we've been in here for like 30 minutes or so. There's a little bit more time left, and you don't have to do it today. But the best thing for you to do is, preview the study guide so you know what kind of questions there are, and then read section 1.1, like the introduction to section 1.1 of the textbook. This is the link that takes you to the textbook. Or if you're in the materials section and you're in chapter 1, there's a link to the textbook itself. So normally we have access to the textbook in class and use it in class, but you can read chapter 1 like online, like here. That won't be true for future chapters. It won't be that all the other chapters will be posted. We can't do that. But this is just chapter 1 from the previous version of the textbook, which is nearly the same. Okay, let's see. Cat came in, walked me out top. That's fine, no problem. All right, if you have other questions or thoughts, you can put them in the chat, or you can turn on your mic, ask questions. Maybe you learned a couple things today. The most important thing is to get a basic overview of the shape of the Earth, how things are organized, why we call the different oceans the different kinds of things. And it's easier for me to illustrate the stuff whenever we're live in class and zooming out because I'm working from home today. Whenever we're back together, things will be a little bit better. All right, so that's about it for today. If you have questions or thoughts, put them in the chat, turn on your mic, whatever. Otherwise, you can read the beginning of chapter 1, start filling out the study guide, and we'll do some stuff about ocean exploration tomorrow. If you don't have any other questions, you can go. I've got everybody marked down for attendance. I marked you down as you came in.
Have a good day, Mr. Flint.
Thanks, you too.